Good day everyone, this is Nemesis, and in today's video we are going to discuss something really important. It has been a problem for quite a while now, but in recent times it has scaled way out of proportions, and if something is not done soon to remedy this issue, I'm afraid that Guild Wars 2 as a game might not have such a pleasant future. Recently I broke internet rule number 1, which is never get involved, also known as don't feed the trolls. I broke quite a few rules recently, and I'm breaking the same rules again just by making this video, but as always everything I do has a reason. I like to think that something good will come out of this video. I will be giving exposure and attention to the wrong kind of people, but I'm doing so with a reason. Before we start, I like to clarify that everything that I have done so far on my channel, all the guides, all the builds, all the footage, has been done from the perspective of a new player. So I realized long ago when I started making videos that coming from a traditional MMORPG into Guild Wars 2 might be a little bit overwhelming. A lot of the things are different, the build system is different, there's no holy trinity, the combat is a little bit more involving, and since you don't have a tank, DPS and healer and skills can be casted on the fly, it might be hard for people to adjust. So that is why I make 1 hour long videos, and that is why I take half of my video, sometimes even more than half, just to explain how things work together so people have a basic understanding of the build system and therefore they can make their own decision. Of course, towards the end of the video I showcase what I personally use, but it's far more important to understand why these particular choices than to simply copy me and think, oh, I copied someone that is great and I'm going to do alright. No. It's important to understand why and how. That's really important. Most of my builds, if not all my builds, are designed to be standalone. That means that the person that just bought Guild Wars 2 saw my video, and by the end of my video that person knows how to play the class relatively well and will perform really well without depending on a group of people in any and all situations. What do you mean by in any and all situation? Well, there are a lot of situations in which because of bad PvE design, you can make something that is not viable, viable. And that certain something is not viable anywhere else except in those situations. Not to mention that if you use my builds, you never have to exploit or anything of the sort. I never promoted exploiting, I never promoted abusing mechanics, and I never will. So with that being said, we can move on to the issue. I had to say that because it's actually connected. As requested by most of you guys, I recently did a guide for The Guardian and it has gotten a lot of appreciation, but at the same time a lot of hate. I've been getting a lot of hate mail. One thing led to another, and eventually a certain post on the official forum has been brought to my attention. And the subject of this post is me. People were trash talking me, my builds and my work on this thread, which I don't really mind. I'm going to post this thread in the description just so you guys have an understanding of the bigger picture of what's going on, but please don't intervene. A lot of people have been trash talking me a lot, but I don't wish you guys to intervene. This is not sort of a retribution, this is not sort of a comeback. I'm not asking to, in fact I'm asking you guys not to intervene. I don't want these guys to be trash talk back or flamed or anything of the sort. If I wanted that, I could get a lot of people to whisper them, stalk them, trash them around. That's not my concern. The mere fact that they trash talk me and mention me so many times is actually free advertising and adds to my popularity. So I don't really mind that this is done. What bothers me is the message that they are trying to promote, and this is the sole reason why I'll be attaching this thread to the description. So once again, please don't intervene. No matter how bad things get in this thread, I shouldn't have said anything either. This is like the internet rule number 1, but someone has to. I checked the other YouTubers that make content for Guild Wars 2, and Kai Dream left Guild Wars 2 more or less. Dante got screwed by Machinima. Mad Visual does all this Q&A and stuff. Wooden Potato focuses more on the lore side, which is quite interesting and brings a bit more interesting side of the game to light. So that's quite nice. So there's actually not many people that have the resources or exposure to talk about the things that are actually important. I know a lot of people feel the same way, but their voice won't be heard. Mine will. So, blah blah blah, me, my builds are bad. I admit it to something I never did. Some people said their videos should be longer and talk with Transylvanian accent. Let me see why my videos have so many views. They're terrible. There's no hope left. My builds are terrible. His play style, strategy, approach, everything is so sloppy, blah blah blah. And this is where I entered the conversation, just to make some points clear, that my videos were made for casual players, for pugs, and it's meant to guide people into making their own choices. This is where I found out why so much hate, because after all, what I do in my free time and what videos I post online should be no one's business. If they're really bad, people won't use them. If they're good, people will use them and thank me for it, and that's exactly what happened. So it's all fun in a day's work. It's not really a problem. The problem is, according to Spoj, and I shouldn't be giving him any attention even though he has been trash talking me for quite a while now. With the amount of viewers you have, I'd like you to showcase the meta builds as well, just so it gets exposure. Even though we know the meta builds for each class, we can't compete with people like you for spreading builds. So the problem is I get more exposure and I don't show the meta builds. What are these meta builds? And I answer, because I know the meta builds, I just choose never to talk about them, and never to advertise, and never to promote these flawed and toxic playstyle that promotes a game that will surely die if this goes on. I say, should I advertise builds that rely on exploits, broken mechanics and team coordination? I should advise casual players to take a melee glass cannon necromancer into fractals. They would go splat in under 3 seconds, and this is my firm belief. The big argument I had with this guy a while back is that my build was getting a little bit more exposure than his build. He was doing a melee type glass cannon, and I admitted then, I admit now, that his melee glass cannon does between 5 to 10% more damage as long as you don't dodge, never die, and can always hit in melee. Tell me guys, if I were to advertise something like this and showcase you how I play in melee, in fractals, if I showcase this to an average player that just started playing the game, they would go like, what are you doing? What are you saying? What is this? I could never teach you guys to go melee in fractals. Are you kidding me? You guys would spend more time dead than alive, and your overall DPS would be much lower because of DPS uptime. But I agree, like I said, I agree then and I agree now. If you have a pre-made group and you have 100% DPS uptime even in melee, so there's no difference between melee and range, melee has higher risk, which in this case it doesn't, therefore it does more DPS. By about 5 to 10%, and that's not my calculation, that's his calculations. So, I agree, but that's wishful thinking, that's theory crafting, that will never happen. The problem is, it actually does. Recently it does, and everything that cannot be converted into this playstyle is neglected. All the dungeons that are not speed run are not done at all. It is spread around the forums that fractals are losing popularity because you are forced to do some of the harder fractals that cannot be speed cleared. A lot of minor issues, but it will all make sense. So, like I said, how many new players do you think will survive in fractals going melee with the glass cannon necromancer? That's ridiculous. Recently I had a player that whispered me saying that the condition mancer is too squishy and he wanted to add more vitality to it. So that's the people that I'm trying to do the guides for, the people that can't make the jump from traditional MMOs into Guild Wars 2. I'm not here to teach the obviously really professional players. They shouldn't even be looking at guides. Why are they looking at guides is beyond me. And this goes on and on and on. I tried to reason with the guy, appeal on his smart side, let's say. I'm sure that he sees that if he keeps promoting this toxic gameplay, it's going to kill diversity in a game that doesn't have an expansion, so no new content, no dungeons, and if you take diversity away, there's like nothing left to play for. The fact that we don't have an expansion is actually part of the problem. People got bored of doing the same dungeons over and over again, and they tried new ways of challenging themselves. And they found new ways to challenge themselves in the form of loopholes, what I call loopholes. Again, I have to be very clear about this. It's sort of internet rule number 2. When trolling, always put stuff in people's mouths and usually claim that they said exactly the opposite of what they actually said. There's a very fine line between exploiting and abusing bad game design. I said that some people are abusing a bad game design, and I said that the same people or other people are exploiting. So what are speed clears, speed runs, or blah blah blah? Well, we know that the game has this beautiful build system that we discussed over the past year, and it revolves around different play styles. We know that in melee you take higher risk, therefore you must do more damage. Because you don't have the same DPS uptime as range, therefore the two of them balance each other out. In melee, when you get to actually hit, you hit really hard just to be on par with the range that can hit more frequently because it is safer to DPS from range. We know that. In speed clears, you do certain parts of the PvE content. You do only the part of the PvE content that can be done by abusing certain bad gameplay designs. What do you mean by that? Well, in certain parts of the PvE, because Guild Wars 2 was meant to be a casual game, there is absolutely no difference between being melee and range. Therefore, in melee you have more DPS uptime than you should. Some players, because they were bored and no new dungeon, no new content, no expansion, they wanted to challenge themselves, they wanted to still do something meaningful, they found ways in which they can do dungeons, certain dungeons, faster and faster and faster by abusing this bad design, and it gets worse from here. We know that condition builds were designed to have low single target DPS but high AoE sustained DPS. They were generally meant to fight AoE, to fight trash mobs, to fight that sort of thing. They will get you to a boss in a dungeon. Well, in recent times most people skip the majority of mobs and they only fight the mobs that they can bug into a corner and burst them down so fast that the mobs don't have a chance to fight back. Usually they start bursting the mobs as they come around the corner. This again is abusing bad gameplay design. So far we skip what we can, we abuse what we cannot skip, we reach a boss and we kill it as fast as possible. What do you mean by as fast as possible? Well, another thing that is majorly game breaking is reflect. In no other game on this planet can you reflect a boss into his grave. You can never reflect a hit back to a boss that does so much damage that the boss kills himself, except this one. If in World of Warcraft, I'm giving this as an example because it was a major success back then and it has reflect damage, and in the reflect damage it says up to a cap. If in World of Warcraft you could actually reflect the Lich King's damage back to himself and kill him in under 3 seconds, the servers would immediately go down for emergency maintenance. The people that did that would have gotten banned and everything would resume to work normally. In Guild Wars 2 that is not the case. In Guild Wars 2 this has become common practice. So far we have skipping, which renders condition builds useless. We have abusing bad gameplay design with corner stacking, which favors only certain type of builds, and we can easily deduce which one are those. Basically, you are full glass because you don't have to worry about getting hit. You buff yourself because you're going to be in one spot clamped up, as clamped up as possible, so you can kill something before it reaches you, and have a lot of reflect. That is all you need. If you don't have that, then you're no good. So what does that mean? Why is that a problem? Well, there are classes that don't really function well with only these 3 elements. There are classes that don't have reflect at all. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that this will permanently remove condition from PvE. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the people that actually argued with me on this thread said that condition builds, tank builds, support builds have no place in PvE. So basically you don't have any form of condition builds. That means goodbye Condition Lancer, goodbye Hybrid, goodbye everything for every class that uses conditions that do damage. Gone. No tank, because why do you need a tank? You're going to skip everything until you reach the boss, and then you're going to abuse the terrain or certain flawed mechanics to kill the boss faster before it even hits, therefore no tank. And of course no healer. And the only form of supporting is just to buff yourself so you can exploit certain terrain or certain parts of the game, which is bad game design, to kill the boss faster than it normally should. I'm going to post in the description some of the speed kills that I have found. I'm not allowed to include them in this video for many legal reasons, but feel free to click the description below and see what I'm talking about. A lot of people defend this playstyle as the ultimate way to play. And the problem is, it is viable, it is doable. You can abuse the design of the game to make something faster, to make a dungeon that was supposed to last for, let's say, 30 minutes, an hour, to make it last only 4 minutes. To make it last even less if you use all the exploits to go under the map, to jump on top of stuff. I don't like to use exploits, but in recent times, everyone seems to be exploiting. Everyone seems to be either exploiting or abusing the game design, if not both. They're exploiting until they can abuse, and this makes for a very toxic gameplay that will eventually kill all diversity in this game and eventually kill the game. So this is the problem. Of course my builds are bad and everything I do is bad compared to this type of exploiting and abusing of game designs. Think about it, it's not even about my builds anymore. All condition builds are bad compared to the... Just watch the third link where Lupicus dies in 4.2 seconds. Lupicus dies in 4.2 seconds. How can you even compete with the condition build? There is no condition build that is able to compete with something like that. The problem is not just with the people. The people weren't really trying to do this in the beginning. A lot of us know that in the beginning they were asking for condition build to be on par with the power build, and I was one of the few people that said, no man, the build system is fine, the condition build is fine, the PvE system is bad, a lot of things that shouldn't work are working. Of course they cannot make condition builds strong enough to kill Lupicus in 4.3 seconds. Are you crazy? What's that going to look like? One condition that kills a monster after 1 second. Okay, do that in PvP. Or, oh no, I got it. It's going to be PvE only. You're going to put 1 dot on 1 boss and he's going to die in 1 second. What kind of trash is that? If the game would have been advertised like this in the beginning, no one would have bought it. Think about it. You saw Lupicus died in 4.3 seconds. The best you can get is 2000, let's say 2200 condition damage, and at 25 stacks of bleeding, at best you get 3828 damage per second. No condition build can match that. Even if you get 250 stacks of conditions, which is impossible, but let's say they remove the cap. Do you guys even realize what that would do to World v World? If you get 250 stacks on a golem and you epidemic once, poof. Anyway, let's say you can get 250 stacks of bleeding on the target. You only do 38,250 damage per second, which would have been fine if you do that times 6, because condition builds, thanks to the spell epidemic, is made to be played AoE, which is not really required because you skip all the trash until you reach the boss. And again, the same problem. You are still not on par with all this abuse and exploiting that you can see in the links below. This is ridiculous, this has to stop. It went way too far. Sooner or later you're going to see people advertise how to skip and how to exploit, and post on Looking For group that they sell this information for gold, and sooner or later you're going to have people whisper me saying that you should weapon swap, and by weapon swap I mean you make your inventory really small and you use the weapon to buff yourself, and just before you do a speed kill you switch that weapon, so you have the benefit of having 3 weapon sets. One you use for buffing and the other you use for hitting, which is again, I'm sure, working as intended, especially since not all classes have access to a weapon that can buff themselves, which automatically excludes certain classes, but we'll get to that soon enough. But also things like disable the melee attack assist option in your setting, which prevents your character from moving into the hitbox of enemies will allow you to use this skill from inside the enemy, hitting with both melee attack and the projectile, resulting in a substantial increase in total damage to the target, which is clearly not working as intended. In no game in the history of the world do you have the possibility to increase your damage from the options menu. Oh, this is hilarious. Sooner or later you're going to have people that whisper me claiming that this is actually working as intended. Oh my god, this is awesome. This is awesome. Sooner or later you're going to have people make websites in which they brag how fast they kill something, regardless if it's exploited or not. The website already exists, of course. I'm not going to show it here because I'm not allowed to, but I'm going to put it in the description because that is legally possible for me to do. And in this long discussion where people showcase how good they are by exploiting and abusing bad design, you have Spoj again, which a lot of the times likes to saying that I admitted to things I never did. My builds are trash, his builds are better, fine, okay. Let's see what he said. Timing change is a good change, separating categories is also good. However, I don't think things like FGS, which I think stands for Fiery Greatsword, which if you check the first link you will see what Fiery Greatsword can do. If you abuse the terrain in such a way that it does more damage than it should, you can one-shot bosses, which is really fun. Good job. However, I don't think things like FGS and minor exploits should be disallowed in the full runs. For example, I feel like the jumping over doors in COE is interesting and something you can use in a full run. This guy feels like this minor exploit should be allowed. These are the people that argue with me. These are the people that dare to come on my Facebook and write stuff like, please don't make Tank Guardian build, your followers will again believe this nonsense, and those are the players who have to be carried by the Zerker meta. I beg you, don't carry on this knob factory of yours. These are the people that have the nerve in recent times to talk to me. They openly admit exploiting on the official forums, also claiming these minor exploits are interesting and should be counted towards speed clearing dungeons in 5 minutes. Is this what this game has come to? These people don't even understand. People like Notabot, I don't even know who this guy is. He says his necro videos aren't a big deal other than the hybrid being a trap, expensive to build and not that good. It's not like necromancers are serious dungeon running class. These people that openly admit to exploiting minor exploits on the official forums, these people that fight to crush the build diversity, that are trying to convert the community into this senseless, pointless speed clearing grind with exploits and everything of the sorts, abusing game design, these people are becoming more and more popular, and they even have the nerve to message me, post on my Facebook, make threads on the official forums. These people don't even understand what will happen if I give in. If I give in, it's going to be so wonderful. I might just do that, but I don't want to ruin the game. That is the sole reason why I broke rule number 1, which is never to get involved. That is the sole reason why I make this video. I don't care if they trash talk me. Trash talk me some more, include me in all your discussion, make me famous. But don't ruin the game. It's only a game, but I spent a year in it, and a lot of people spent a year in it. And a lot of people came to this game looking for something better, and new people are making it worse. So think about what will happen if I give in, with all the exposure that I apparently am getting by deceiving people. I deceived thousands. You guys should read the entire thread, it's hilarious. So I said, no, of course it's playing as intended. Their ultimate argument is that this is actually playing as intended. Everything you see in the description below is playing as intended. So let me see if I can too read the dev's mind. Attempting to read the dev's mind. Please stand by. So, when the dev said, so I'm going to attempt to translate some of the initial statements that brought many of us to Guild Wars 2. So, they said you can play whatever you want. And by that it means, well, you can play whatever you want, but you should not play condition, support, tank. You should only play DPS, and only the type of DPS build which is in the meta, which are the DPS builds that encourage abuse of bad game design or exploiting, or both. They have created the most complex build system in any MMORPG, and by doing so they ignore certain other aspects of the game, such as the final boss in the story wasn't what people expected. A lot of minor issues, but it doesn't matter. They have the best build system in any MMORPG, but that is truly just for show. You're going to use only 20% of it. Nothing regarding healing or condition or that sort of thing, of course. No more Holy Trinity, that is the motto. No longer will players have to suffer the burden of choice. No longer will the players have to suffer diversity or decision making. All you need is one build to rule them all. No more Holy Trinity, we have unity. They also created long dungeons that were filled with monsters and terrain and wonderful stuff, but in truth, they wanted players to skip most of the trash mobs, I agree. They wanted players to skip most of the trash mobs. They also wanted to not engage in combat whenever possible, jump with weird angles on leftover of terrain, go through the map if possible, exploit to go over the map, whatever means necessary to reach the final boss where you actually can one-shot him. That's what the devs actually wanted. All their hard work is, of course, to be skipped. I don't even understand how anyone could say differently. No longer will our players have to suffer through 30 minutes or longer of meaningful harsh PvE experience. For the first time ever in any MMORPG, in our game all dungeons can be completed in 4 minutes. That's all you need, 4 minutes. It's not even dungeons, it's mini dungeons. This is the first MMORPG in the world that doesn't have dungeons. It only has mini dungeons. Of course. Can you imagine if me, that has one of the highest exposure out of the people that still make content for Guild Wars 2. Can you imagine if I make a compilation of all the videos that I linked in the description and much more, of all the interesting gameplay aspects, as Spoj would like to call it, and all the abuse of bad gameplay design, put them into one video and at the end say Guild Wars 2 best MMORPG in the world. Can you imagine what would happen if I do that and I post this on every MMORPG website I know, advertising the game this way, with absolutely no build diversity and dungeons that take like 4 minutes to complete? They are fighting to make this a reality and they are trying to drag me down with it, and because I don't succumb to this idiotic gameplay, they trash talk me wherever they can, and I couldn't care less. But the problem is, by converting the rest of the community, they're going to ruin the game that I invested a year of my life into. And I could say that the game needs me now more than ever, but when people like Spoj, who openly admits to exploiting minor exploits and encourages people to do them, doesn't even get infracted by moderator, and at the same time people like me, who doesn't give in to peer pressure and still fights for a better game, a game that was promised to us, gets their post infracted by a moderator because I mention I don't agree with exploits. All I said, as for the rest of the people in this thread and anyone that defends speed killing, speed kill away my friends, feel good about yourselves for every single broken mechanics exploit in the game. Another +1 Lupicus kill for the win, grinned away my friends. All I said was this with an ironical tone, just to see the ridiculous. After they trash talk me for an entire thread, the moderator decides that I'm in the wrong by saying this. My friend, I understand I am wrong, not a problem. I will make the video that I said and I will advertise Guild Wars 2 all over the place. Is that good? Yes? No more ban. Fine? So that's the thing. If Arena doesn't intervene soon, the game is going to take a really ugly turn. It's going to render a lot of the classes useless. It's going to render all condition tank or support builds useless, and it's going to create a really bad habit that even if ArenaNet tries to correct it further down the line, people already got used to skipping and speed killing everything with as many exploits or abuses as possible, and there's not going to be a way back. That's the problem. This problem could not have come at a worse time. Diablo 3 Reapers of Souls is coming out, WildStar is coming out, The Elder Scrolls Online is coming out, If by the time those games come out, this issue will not be, if ArenaNet doesn't take control of their game back and keep focusing on leaving story only instead of improving and offering the people what they advertised in the beginning, this game is done for. I wasted a year of my life in this, but it doesn't matter that much because I had a lot of fun with you guys. I managed to make this small community and a lot of people look up to me, and this is part of why I made this video. I made it for you guys. I have no interest or desire of arguing with a lot of people, nor do I have an interest of doing a comeback and trashing them around. Like I said, it actually helps my popularity. My only concern is you guys, and I have to be fair. Think about it. It would actually be simpler for me to accept all of these meta builds, advertise to you guys, and let's have fun. I would have new content to produce, we'll all have fun in a really fucked up game, which I choose not to accept, not to advertise, not now, not ever. So if you guys want to join that particular meta and join the mindless people in their everlasting quest of feeling good about themselves because they abused and exploited a bad gameplay design, feel free to do so. I honestly don't mind at all. But for the rest of the people that still want this game to deliver what was promised, make some noise. Don't let this minority transform into a majority. Make some noise, send some emails, give feedback. I may be influential in the Guild Wars 2 community, but I'm just one person, and ArenaNet will not listen to me, but they might listen to all of us combined. Ask for the game to get improved, ask for the game to go on the path that it was set in the beginning, and don't give in to this pathetic peer pressure. This means nothing. So until next time, hopefully enjoy your gaming and have a great day.